All right, y'all, we're gonna get started today. So thank you for joining this month's Armchair Botanist Forum. We're excited to learn more about ferns today. We have Dr. Ana Gabriela Martinez here today. Ana has visited Brit before and has spent some time with us, very close with Alejandro Vasco. And we were at the Botanical Society of America conference together last year and also saw each other in Madrid for IBC this year. And she is just wonderful. And so I'm really excited for her to share more about ferns with us. So if y'all have any questions throughout this presentation, feel free to put those in the chat. And Anna said she's happy to answer them throughout the call today. So very casual conversation. And I'm looking forward to it. Thank you guys. And thank you, Anna, for being willing to share with us today.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this talk. I'm so glad to be here. So thanks to the Brit team for the invitation. Thanks, Ashley, for the introduction. So in the next few minutes, I will talk about my favorite plants ever. I mean, ferns, obviously. And especially, I would like to share with you all some fun facts about them and make a special emphasis on some Mexican species. So I hope you like it and enjoy it, as well as learn something new about these plants. Um, but before I start talking about ferns, I would like to say just a couple of things about myself for you to know who I am. My name is Ana Martinez. I am a Mexican botanist, and currently I am a postdoc researcher at the Biology Institute of the National Autonomous University of Mexico. My main research has been addressed to better understand the diversity and evolution of tropical ferns, but mainly of the Mexican ones. I did my PhD under the advisement of Dr. Alejandra Vasco, who probably you know very well. Therefore, I have been at Brit at different times. Okay, now let's get started to talk about ferns. And I am pretty sure that you all know ferns very well because these plants are widely used in the decoration of homes, gardens, and other public places. Besides, I think most of you have Mount ferns to include in the Brit Herbarium collection because, as probably you know, Dr. Alejandro Vasco has a very important project on the ferns of Colombia and has made many fern collections in the last few years. Anyways, now, talking about Mexico and its ferns, I'm glad to share with you that this country is one of those with more fern species in the world. Within the American continent, Mexico occupies the third place in terms of fern diversity, with around 1,039 species, just behind Colombia and Ecuador. Of these Mexican species, at least 200 are endemic to Mexico. This means they don't grow in other countries. Only we can find them in Mexico. And also Mexican ferns are distributed in all ecosystems across the country. Most of them are found in the cloud forests and deserts. And due to the Mexican desert being in the north of the country and border to the USA, many species that grow in this kind of vegetation are also present in the deserts of Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. But the good news is that ferns are not only diverse in Mexico, but also all over the world. And their diversity also refers to their morphology and ecology. Actually, ferns are the second group of vascular plants with more species on our planet, just behind the seed plants. It is estimated that there are around 10,500 species of ferns around the world. Also, they are most diverse in the tropical zones. And regarding its morphology, in this slide, you can see different kinds of ferns. And you can notice that the variation in the shape and size of their leaves is huge and amazing. Traditionally, we associate ferns with plants with divided leaves, but besides we can find different kinds of divided leaves, there are also species with undivided leaves like this one or this one or maybe this. And when I say the ferns are also diverse ecologically, I meant besides they growing in all ecosystems, they can also live happily on practically any surface. In this way, we can find epiphyte species which grow on tree trunks and branches, terrestrial species that grow ferns growing in the soil, and here including the very famous huge tree fern, which could reach more than 20 meters high. And there also are epipetric species growing on rocks, and we can even find aquatic ferns growing on the water surface. Now, talking about the characteristics that make ferns amazing plants, the most important is their life cycle because it is unique among the plant kingdom. In simple terms, we can say that ferns have a double life because their life cycle includes two completely independent phases, and it is something that does not happen in other plants. Then the life of ferns includes two different plants, the gametophyte and the sporophyte. Um, and they are the sexual and asexual phases, respectively. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them, but in the next slide, I would like to explain a little bit about the spores because the spores are very important in these plants. The spores are little tiny structures that sometimes we can see on the herbarium sheet, like in these images, because they look like dust. And they are the structures that ferns use to disperse and reproduce. Also, spores can sometimes be seen by the naked eye. To be able to see the spores in detail, like in the other images I am showing to you, we should use a specific microscope. But anyways, the life cycle of ferns starts when the spores germinate. Then when the spore germinates, it produces a gametophyte. And gametophytes are completely functional plants. They look like this image, but they are very small and hard to see, therefore usually go unnoticed. However, these plants correspond to the sexual phase of ferns, and this means they are in charge of producing gametes, or what is the same, the male and female reproductive cells. Once fertilization occurs between gametophyte, the sporophyte development starts. We are most familiar with the sporophytes because they are the traditional plants that we see. They correspond to the asexual phase of the life cycle, which means they only produce spores, therefore don't have gender. I mean, they are not male or female plants. As you can imagine, knowing the life cycle of ferns and understanding they were plants without flowers, fruit, or seeds wasn't an easy task. That's why for a long time, ferns were considered very mysterious plants, and people create different stories or legends that explain why they could not see their seeds or flowers. One of these legends say that the seeds of the ferns were invisible, but those who found and ate them will become invisible. How could they do that? I don't know, but they say that. This story was so famous that even William Shakespeare includes some paragraphs about it in his work called Henry IV. And in it, he told about a thief who managed to find the invisible seeds and eat them, therefore became invisible to was able to escape from the police. Another legend is about this fern, commonly called the royal fern, the flowering fern, or the San Juan fern. And by the way, this species is well represented in Mexico and Texas, as well as a lot of other places. But these stories say that these plants only bloom on the San Juan night on June 24th, and their flowers attracted different demons that ate them during the night. Therefore, the next morning, people only saw the remains of the flowers, these structures. However, what they thought were the flower remains actually are the fertile leaves of the ferns that has a lot of spores. And okay, moving on to another topic, probably you have heard that the ferns are very old plants, and they do. They appeared on Earth around 430 million years ago and dominated the landscapes for several million years. From the moment that ferns appeared until today, our planet has suffered a lot of changes. For example, five massive extinctions have occurred, which were caused mainly by climatic changes. During this event, 95% of the species living at that time, not only plants or ferns, but also animals, completely disappeared. But guess what? Ferns did not. They managed to survive each one, giving rise to the huge diversity that we know. And although most species that we know nowadays are recent, I mean that they appeared around 70 million years ago, the lineage from which they descend is very, very old. And curiously, one of the climate change that caused one of the massive extinction was caused by a fern. Yes, just as you are hearing. This event is known as the Azola event and occurred 50 million years ago. In this case, our planet suffered a dramatic decrease in temperature because this small aquatic fern began to reproduce out of control until it invaded almost the entire surface of the ocean, causing the Earth to freeze due to the lack of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now it's time to talk about some uses of ferns, because believe it or not, ferns have a lot of uses. For example, in Mexico, the tree fern trunks and leaves are used to build houses in different indigenous communities where people are very poor. They also use other species of ferns to protect their homes. In this image, you can see how people put them on the roofs as a natural barrier to protect them from the rain and sun, especially in the tropical zone. Also, they use the trunks of tree ferns to make pots for plants or even as a substrate to plant other species, for example, orchids, like in this image. And they sell these handicrafts in local markets as a way to get some money. However, it's important to say that all the Mexican tree ferns are under extinction risk, and they are theoretically protected by the government. However, there are no strategies enough, to reach the aim, and people continue to use them a lot. And ferns also have an important use in Mexican traditional medicine. For example, equisetting species, better known as horsetails, are widely used in the treatment of kidney diseases or as a dietary supplements or even as a hair treatments to improve their shine. And just believe it or not, again, the horsetails are ferns. For a long time, these plants were considered closely related to ferns. However, the use of molecular data from the DNA allow us to know they are also ferns, despite of they don't look like a traditional fern, right? And one of the most innovative uses of ferns is probably in the dermatological industry because currently different brands are using extract from the fern called Phlebodium aureum to make sunscreen because it's proven that this species has a lot of antioxidants that help to protect the skin against UV rays. What do you think about it? That's amazing, right? So, although there are many other uses for ferns, now I would like to show just an example of the dark side of this plant. Because although most of the fern species are charming, there are some exceptions. For example, there are different species belonging to the genus Pteridium that are very dangerous. Uh, these ferns are very invasive and represent an ecological problem in almost all countries because they reproduce very quickly and they are very hard to eliminate because their rhizomes are deeply bored, yes. So even if the plant is good, it grows back in a short time. Therefore, it's considered as a pest. But another important concern is they are toxic if eaten. Therefore, when livestock eat them in the field, they die from poisoning. As you can imagine, this is especially alarming in areas where livestock is the main source of income. Unfortunately, animals are not the only ones that eat them because in different regions, mainly from Asia, these ferns are very common in the population's regular diet. Nevertheless, it is proven that the consumption of this species is directly related to stomach cancer in human beings. So now you know if somebody invites you to eat ferns, say no, not thanks and run away. And okay, I could keep talking about ferns for a long time, but I think we can, or you can make me some questions, and I will finish this talk at least for today, uh, saying that although it seems there are a lot of specialists studying ferns everywhere, we are not enough to study all the diversity of these amazing plants. So if you are interested in them, don't hesitate and join us. You will be welcome. And okay, now I'll be glad to answer your questions or I don't know. Thank you so much for attending. And if you prefer, you also can send me an email and say hello or whatever you want.
Thank you. I see little clapping emojis from everyone. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
I
guys.
I just learned so much, and in my head, I was like, I probably know all this stuff. Like, I know
Oh,
ferns. I think I know ferns, but I totally learned some new stuff. I thank you for giving such a like all around good synopsis. Um,
okay. And
there's
there are a lot of other fun facts about this plant, but in this time I just collect just
yeah.
but there
I
are a
was
lot.
imagining that it was probably hard for you to only pick just this amount
Yeah.
of facts because there's so much more you
That's
could
okay.
say. And I will vouch,
Yeah.
and I can say that the fern community is very awesome and welcoming. Even though I'm not a fern expert, they always make me feel welcome. Um,
Okay.
there's no questions in the chat, but I had a few things that I wrote down. Epipetric. That was a new word for me. I had never heard of that before. So those are ferns that are growing on rocky surfaces. So like
Yes, on rock.
very minimal soil or like none. It's just kind of the rocky material.
Usually there is soil on the rocks.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
yeah,
And what
but yes.
are there certain groups that prefer that type of environment more than others, or do you think we see it across several groups of ferns?
Um, Maybe the species that grow in deserts,
Uh-huh.
are more common to use the rocks as a surface to grow. Yes, but
Okay.
in a lot of different genera, there are different species growing in the rocks.
Cool.
At the same time, they could grow on the soil, in the soil, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or even in the tree trunks.
Yeah.
The same species could grow in trees,
Wow.
on rocks, in the soil. Yeah.
They'll find a way. They'll find whatever place they can.